I'm so glad you're joining me for more gospel charts. This is Wait on the Lord by James Wilson. It features additive chords and one suspension that's very important. So we're going to dive right in with this tutorial on the verses and the chorus. I'll come back with part 2 and we'll go even farther into this wonderful song. So let's begin with verse 1. There are several additive chords. By that I mean there are notes in the chord that are beyond just the first, third, and fifth that we normally do. So by that I mean if we're in the key of G, we play a G chord, we usually play in G, B, and D. That's the usual members of the chord. But if you play this song, you're going to notice there's some numbers besides these letters. So if you're looking at a letter chart, we see a G2, a C2. What does that mean? There's no 2. What are we talking about? So we want to dive in and take away some of the mystery with that. So the basic explanation is if you're looking at a chord and for example the G2, okay, so we have, I'm looking just at the 5 notes that surround G, A, B, C, and D here. So we usually use 1, 3, and 5. That's the usual understood members of the chord. So if we have a G2, we're talking about the second note above the name of the chord. So that means the A is involved. Now most of you that have tried to figure this out on your own, you're going to find out really quickly. Just pushing that G, A, B together, add the D, I mean, it's not terribly unfortunate, but it just doesn't quite sound like what I want to hear on this. How do I get that gospel sound? How do I get that chord to sound right? So that's what I'm here to help you out with. So we have the G2. I'm going to explain what the C2 is. He uses those a lot, and there also is a D2. So G, C, and D2. Let me show you where those 2's are, and then I'll show you how that they lay out on the keyboard. Okay, so in the most simplest form, C2 then, there's my C chord, the D, that's what we're talking about. C2 would include the D in the C chord. And lastly, we have the D chord. Yep, you guessed it, going right up to the D, F sharp, A. The E would be the second note. So now we've identified what the additives are, how to find them. That's half the battle. It's just where are we, what's going on? Okay, now to put them into context, that's the fun. All right, so at least I think it's fun. I think you will too if you join along. So when we begin on that E minor 7 chord, I'm just going to take you from the start of the verse and walk you through each chord, and we're going to have those additive 2 chords in there as well. So here we go. On the first verse, he starts with that, there's not a mountain too tall. So I'm just going to play this left hand. I'm doing a lot of what I call power chords, just the root and the fifth. So this is an E and a B. And I'm below middle C here. This is D and G. So I have the name of the chord. There's the 3 members, E, G, B. And I'm adding the 7th, which is the D. There's not a mountain. So mountain, I'm just going to play that D, F sharp, A chord, and then it's a split. So you put the F sharp on the bottom of the chord. A split chord simply means a note other than the chord's name is played in the bass. Okay, so let's put those 2 chords together once again. There's not a mountain too tall. Uh-oh, there's that G2. So I'm choosing to spell that left hand. I'm going to keep that G and D, that 5th interval going there, 5 notes apart. Right hand, instead of playing G, I'm going to elect instead to play an A and a D. You notice I'm leaving out the B. If you add the B in there besides the A, it's going to sound like a suspended chord. Not necessarily a bad thing. I just want a very simple and bare chord right there because there's not a lot going on in the band. So I chose to leave it just A, D in the right hand and the G and D in the left. If you would like to add the B, you certainly have license to do so. Okay, so there's the G2. It's going to go on to C2. You notice I'm already playing D. So in the chord of C, C, E, G, we said D was the second note above C. Wait, I'm already playing D. So I'm just going to keep that D there. I'm all about playing with efficiency and not having to jump around the keyboard like a little kangaroo hopping. There's enough going on. So in this case, we're at A and D for the G2 chord. So I'm going to keep that D right here. I'm going to open my hand and I'm going to play the G and the E. So I have E, G, D. I'm playing that 1, 2, 5, seems to fit the hand well. You can bring that elbow out a little bit to support the 5 if you need to. Left hand, you can add the 5 there. If you find that a little too difficult, you could just leave the E out and play G and D. I like the added texture of having that E in there. So that's my personal preference there. Okay, we go back then. There's not a problem. There's not a problem. We already did the G2 before. And then we have 2 small, D suspended. Okay, so the chord chart doesn't say, is it a suspended 2 or is it a suspended 4? I am going to choose a suspended 4. It seems to fit best what he does in his recording. So we're going to do a suspended 4. That's 4 notes above the note D. That's a G. So instead of playing F sharp, I'm going to opt to play the G in its place, D, G, and A. So that's what it looks like in root position. I have D, G, A instead of D, F sharp, A. So this suspended, we know that it's going to resolve to its original chord position, D, F sharp, A. How do we know that? The chart says D suspended and then immediately it says D. So that tells me right there, I'm not going to leave the suspension hanging. I'm going to resolve it. So here it is in root position for those of you wanting to just see what that looks like. Now I'm already down here in the lower ranges of the keyboard, so I'm going to actually invert that chord and flip it so that it fits best with what I'm already doing. I'm going to start back with There's Not a Problem Too Small. Hang in there. Here we go. There's Not a Problem, E, G, D, or just D and G and D. Get my words out. There's Not a Problem. And then I'm going to do D, still keeping that pinky, thumb, G, second finger, A. And I'm just going to slide my whole hand back. And thumb, you're going to reach over for that F sharp. So the 2 here and the 5, you don't even have to move. You just slide forward. So if you'll notice, I was kind of sneaky. I played C2, G2, D suspended, and a regular D chord. My right hand never moved from the 5th finger being on D. So that is what we call really good voice leading, organizing the hand so that the chords are not jumping around. I think most people have trouble with this kind of chord chart because it's overwhelming and they're jumping all over the place and it's just like, I can't do this. So I'm showing you an easy way that you can grasp that. Now, if this is all brand new to you, you might want to pause here, take a moment, review that chord set, and then come back for more. Okay, I'm going to play through that whole first line. I'm going to minimize my talking. It's hard for me not to talk. I'm going to minimize my talking to almost nothing and just play through so you can see what my hands are doing here. Okay, here we go. Okay, noticing the left hand is always playing the name of the chord with the pinky, and I chose to play a 5th above that with the thumb. That way it's a nice closed position while my right hand is doing all the extras. Okay, moving on, that Jesus can't resolve. In time, he'll get involved. That's the next set of lyrics I'm headed for. Well, notice some friends are returning, so be encouraged. We have this C2 again. We did that on There's Not a Problem Too Small, So Small, whatever the words are there. E, G, D. There's that Jesus can't resolve. Now I'm going to keep that D. The next chord is that E minor 7. I'm just going to, because of where I'm at with the G2 chord here, I'm just going to open my hand and keep that. So E, G, D. If you're feeling mighty powerful, you can add in the B, so everything but the 3rd finger plays. You can if you'd like, or you can pick out some of the notes. I like having at least the root and the 7th. It warms it up a little bit to have the middle voice or voices. So you decide, and a E5, E to B in the left. Okay, so that little set there that Jesus can't resolve, that Jesus can't resolve, opening the hand. In time he'll, oh, there it is, D suspended. Oh, hey, we've got a friend right there. I love it when patterns repeat. Okay, and then our God cares about us. So we're coming from that D suspended in resolution and open the hand. Our God, he cares. Okay, so there's something really neat happening here. We have this D2. It's the first time in the verse, the only time that we have a D2. We've had a D suspended. Oh, he's all over these D chords. D suspended, a D2 chord, and the traditional use of the D chord. So we are just stretching you in all kinds of ways. Don't worry, it's possible. We can do this. So on that C2, we started Our God Cares. We had E, G, and D. Now notice the E is also the 2nd note above D. If you're having trouble with this, just think through the alphabet. A, B, C, D. What's the note after D? Well, the alphabet says it's got to be E. There you go. So don't make it harder than it is. Just think through the alphabet. So the 2nd note above D is E. Well, look, this was my C2 chord. I already have an E. The name of the chord that I'm going to is D. So I'm going to keep the outer members of this chord the same. You see how smart that is? Our God, He cares. The only note I'm going to change is the middle. So it goes from E, G, D to E, A, D. Move the second finger to the third. I just shift fingers because it's right underneath the fingertips. No need to shift the whole hand. So, our God, He cares about us. I'm going to keep that A. That's the second note above G. Remember the music alphabet, once you hit G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the alphabet starts again, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So that's why I said A. So I'm keeping from the D2, which is here, I'm going to go to that A and D. The D is the fifth note of the G chord. I'm going to keep the A, that works. And then my left hand is going to provide the 5. So I'm just doing the name of the chord and the 5th. Okay, I'm going to play through that last, actually, yeah, let's do that last line. Our God, He cares about us. If you're following along, you can join. Our God, He cares about us. Okay, deep breath. You survived. If you need to pause and go back and review those chord positions, go ahead and do that. I'm going to move on to the course. I do want to make a point here. If you listen to the recording, the way this is intended to be sung is the chords are very quiet. There's not a full band happening on that first verse. So what I just showed you, just playing the chords very quietly, you notice I'm not adding fills, I'm not adding any rhythms, I'm not trying to pump it up. It's just very quiet chord shifts. That's all I'm doing. And that is appropriate for what He's trying to do at the beginning of this song. So once you've got the chord positions, you're good to go. You'll be in fine shape. You can just add the pedal and move forward. Okay, so on to our chorus. He sings it as a solo the first time. Again, a very simple playing of the chords. We don't need any showing off of our great pianistic abilities. You just want to play it simply. All right, so let's run through. We have a C2 again, starting off the wait on the Lord. Wait on the Lord. So this is where I want to point out, because sometimes we've talked about in previous tutorials for church, is we often try to trace out what the melody line is to help the singer, support the singer. So I'm going to deviate from that a little bit, because sometimes in gospel, we purposely don't support exactly that note. So he is singing, the soloist, wait on the Lord. It's an E right there. You notice I'm playing the E down here. Wait. So he's singing there. So if you have a singer who's having a little trouble finding their note, you might want to adjust the chord to play that E. For now, I'm going to take it in the simple gospel fashion and not find that note. I'm going to lay it out as I did earlier. Wait on the Lord. There's that G2 again. And then I'm going to move up. The melody shifts up here quite a bit. Wait. So I'm going to choose to arrange the E minor 7 as B, D, G right here in the middle, above middle C, B right below, D above middle C, G above. Wait on the Lord. I'm going to jump back down to that position. You can make your own choice if you want to keep the E minor in the original position I showed, or if you want to shift up a little bit. I like moving things around just a little bit every once in a while. You make your choice. So here's all of the first line of the course. If you want to play along, ready, and okay, the chorus continues, same beginning, C2 and G2. Okay, and then we have a progression here, C2, D2, G2. You notice how many of these additive 2 chords, they're all over the place, and it really is the making of this gospel sound. Can you play the chart without the additives? Sure you can. You can do it. But to me, it loses some of its flavor, some of its gospel quality if you don't. So I'm really proud of you for trying this, putting yourself out there and getting these additive chords. So on that He'll Renew Your Strength, I'm going to play the C2. I decided to shift it a little bit. So you're going to see here, I'm going to move down. He'll renew your strength. Part of the reason I did that was just to make it easier on the keyboardist to play. So we're looking at D, G, C. I'm below, this is middle C right here in case you're trying to place where I'm at. And then I'm just going to walk everything up a step. And that's D2. There's your D, there's the A, the 5th of the chord, and there's E, the 2nd. So again, D, G, C. Noticing I'm using a 2 in the middle, and that way I can move to my third finger when I go to that E, A, D. The G2, I'm just going to leave that A and D right where it is and add the bass G, D in the bottom. Okay, so all of that second line of the chorus, are you ready? I think you're ready. Let's try it. Okay, so we can go wait on the Lord. Swooping down for this one. Your strength. So what I'm thinking about, the reason why I changed the chord, it does tend to follow the melody that he's singing by himself that first time on He'll Renew Your Strength. I'm really being careful so that the keyboard doesn't come above his singing level. I kind of want it to stay in that low background range. That's what I'm choosing. I think it sounds the best, so that way the attention, the focus stays on the words, the lyrics that they're getting across. This is the first time the congregation is hearing those lyrics, which are so powerful, aren't they? Wait on the Lord. So that gets us through the verse and the chorus. Verse 2, you see the same progression of chords as the first. So I'm not going to go through that again, but that gets you the tools to get through the second verse. Okay, so remembering also, this is thinking about the very beginning of the song. You notice how low I am in the left hand. I'm very low down here. I'm 1, 2, sometimes 3 octaves below the middle of the piano. So for those of you that are playing with the band, you're thinking, whoa, that's a big no-no. You shouldn't do that. Well, I'm assuming that the band isn't playing right here. That it's just the keyboard the first time through the verse and the first time through the chorus. So that will obviously change as you begin to build and bring in more singers. That can change as we go along. So that gives you a start on the verse and the chorus. I hope that you are feeling much better about that additive 2 chords and that 1 suspended chord. But boy, it comes back and you get a lot of mileage out of that D suspended chord. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this was helpful to you, go ahead and give it a like. You're welcome to leave me a comment in the section below, and I will see you next time.